Welcome to TriEmbed for September 2025. We don't have any new members present, so no introductions are needed. Any announcements? I got a message for PCB Carolina in November. A lot of us have gone to that in the past. Let me look up what that date was.
Yeah,
It's November
I went
12th.
there one time, and I found that when you tried to talk to people, as soon as they found out that you weren't with a company, they didn't want to talk to you.
That's interesting. I didn't find that to be the case. I would bring one little Osh Park board and, tell them that sometimes I was bummed that I had to buy 3 copies of it, and they'd chuckle. But I found them mostly to be accommodating.
Well, I mean,
What day of the
some
week
were,
is that?
but there was a pretty
It's a
good
Wednesday.
percentage that just literally turned the cold shoulder on me as soon as they realized I wasn't
Yeah.
working for some company somewhere.
One year I had NVIDIA on my badge, and that turned some heads.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've missed the last 2 years, but I typically go most every year. Yes, that's November. Any other announcements? Things going on?
Nothing different than last time for me.
Okay. All right. So problem of the month. You may recall that I developed a little sensor box. Do I have one? One of my laser cut plywood ones, and I called it CTD for check the door. My daughter at the vet practice where she works, there was a refrigerator with a door that wouldn't close all the way. And so I made a little ESP8266 based setup with a temperature sensor, Dallas 1 wire. And it would wake up every 5 minutes, check the temperature, and if it was within range, it would go back to sleep. And so,
Even if the door was open?
if the temperature was in range, it would go back to sleep.
Huh.
If it was above or below, it would push a notification to her cell phone. Hi, Dawn.
Was the device in the refrigerator or outside?
In the refrigerator.
And it worked fine, huh?
Yeah, it's about this big. Has a LiPo battery, D1 Mini Pro, which has the battery charging circuitry on it. They've been working fine for a couple of years now. I get a daily report from each device, and it tells what range of temperatures it's seen, how many times it has booted. My daughter can go in with a web page and set the temperature min and max for thresholds for alarming, and it also monitors the battery voltage, and if it gets low, it tells her to recharge the battery. So she's been using it. The batteries have been running several months at a time before having to be recharged. She's been happy with it. It's saved the stuff in the refrigerator a couple of times. These are medicines and things that have to be kept cold, and if they lose,
Oh, this is for the veterinarian stuff.
yeah, so vaccines and things that have to be
Right.
kept at certain temperatures, and so they've got several $1,000s worth of inventory.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely you need to deal with that.
So she's been happy with it. The USB mini jack on the D1s has started to get loose, and it's sometimes difficult to get the battery to charge. There's a little light that comes on when it's charging, so she wiggles the wire around and braces it and clicks a hemostat here or there, and until it
Can't
is
tell you
on.
how many USB connectors I've ripped the pads off of the board.
Yep.
And tons of the fact I got a rig right here next to me now that's got that problem.
Are you at work right now, Scott?
Yep.
But I figured. It
So
didn't look like your living room.
No.
So I, for the last 6 to 9 months, have been using an ESP32C3 Pico. It has the same shield footprint as the D1 minis do. The pin numbering, which IO ports are scrambled a bit, but and the C3 Pico has the LiPo charging circuitry on it. I have one. And so it also, being an ESP32, has an internal temperature sensor. And so potentially I can get rid of the Dallas one wire. So she's had a couple of, so she has 3 boxes, one in the refrigerator in the clinic and one there's a refrigerator in the back of the veterinarian trucks. So she has 2 of those. If they forget when they bring the truck back to the clinic, if they forget to plug into shore power, the refrigerators will stop cooling. They run on a battery or something, and so they can warm up. What was I going to say? 3. One or more of them have the temperature has drifted, right? And so instead of checking that the temperature is between 30 and 37, they now have it between 28 and 32 or something. The Dallas one wire things, I've seen that as well, where they'll lose a bit or something. And
Have you plotted it against humidity?
no,
The drift?
it's humidity.
Yep, because that's what I experienced with some of those Dallas one wires.
Okay.
They'll shift around based on humidity, but you'll see it a little bit more often. In other words, within the same week, you'll notice the drift,
Okay.
and then it might drift back.
Mine has been like a 4.6 degree offset in the centigrade Celsius temperature, and it's pretty constant. But it's last week it was doing good, and this week it's X degrees higher than a similarly located one. So anyhow, the C3 Pico, I've been porting the code from 8266 land to ESP32 land, making some tweaks and changes, and I got it working to my satisfaction. Plugged into USB on my desktop machine here, and it would wake up every 5 minutes, and I've got a little beeper attached so I can hear it doing things. When it's so if it's plugged into USB, it detects that there's 5 volts on the USB in, and it does not send the temperature alarms.
You're using the internal sensor. And I was going to question you about that as well, because the temperature that is going to be read within the chip is not necessarily going to be the ambient temperature outside of the structure.
While that's true, I believe that if you're sleeping for 5 minutes, waking up for 40 milliseconds, the amount of heat that the processor can generate and offset the internal temperature sensor by is almost nothing.
I was thinking of the ambient temperature making its way through that casing.
Well, that's what you want.
Yeah,
would think.
yeah.
No. You want it through the casing.
Yeah, you do want it to.
I'm concerned that it's not going through the casing very well.
So you're concerned that there's more thermal mass in the processor than the Dallas one-wire chip that's sitting more exposed.
Well, the
That's
Dallas
possible.
one wire exposes its temperature sensor to the ambient air. The Pico, I don't think does.
It's encased in plastic, but I would not argue strenuously that there's. I think it's a problem. I don't think it's a big problem. I'm not worried about internal heat from the processor because it's asleep 99.9% of the time.
Yeah, that's not what I was thinking of, but okay.
Okay. The vaccines have a fair amount of thermal mass as well. So just blowing in some 60-degree air isn't going to hurt them, or would it be registered by the sensor? Anyhow, so I got it working. I was happy with it. I didn't have a LiPo battery plugged in while I was doing it. I plugged the LiPo battery in, and I noticed that my detection of whether I'm doing USB powered or not was broken. Now there's a threshold, so I'm measuring. On the
Doesn't it have an onboard PMIC?
PMIC.
Power management chip.
There is a charger chip. Yep. Let me bring up the schematic. See if I can remember how to do my sharing here. Here we go.
Because the PMIC should have a like an I2C signal that it can tell you whether.
No, nothing that fancy.
Whether you're on, between the 5 volts, the 3 volts, and how low you drop, that it will still deliver what's needed by the circuit.
Okay, I see your schematic.
Okay, so there are 2 of these little jumpers. They're on the back of the circuit board, and you solder them if you want to close them. You just they're normally open. This one takes the battery voltage through a 50% divider and puts it onto IO pin 3, which is one of the analog pins on the processor. So with this, I can read what the voltage of the battery is. This little on jumper turns the charging LED light on or off with it. So this is the charger circuit for the battery. Down here is, so V bus is the USB power coming in. There's a diode, so you're going to get a voltage drop. VN is the 5-volt pin in the one corner of the circuit board. And there's this MOSFET that is supposed to see that if there's no USB circuitry, it allows the battery voltage onto the 5-volt pin. If there is USB voltage, it's supposed to turn off the battery. And what you see is the USB voltage less one diode drop. And so I, on my shield, made another little voltage divider that takes that pin and routes it through a similar divider network to another analog pin. And I'm just taking the raw value off of the, so it's going to be, what, 2.6 volts or something on a 3.30 to 3.3 analog input pin. And so it's reading, roughly 3/4 of full scale.
Your 1N5819W is probably got a 0.7 volt drop average.
Okay. I'm seeing about 4.6. And my thing says that the USB voltage coming out of my computer is 5.01. So it's about a 4/10 of a volt drop.
I was going to say the 5819 is pretty efficient.
Yeah, but it's still a regular diode. What I'm thinking is if you put a Schottky diode in there, you're going to get a much lower voltage.
This is on
drop.
the board. I'm not changing any of this stuff. This is on the
this
Pico
is
board.
on their board?
Yeah.
This is okay.
This is the schematic of their board.
You can't do anything with that. All right.
No.
I thought this was part of your circuit board.
No. And so somehow having 4 volts here changes what's here. And I tried 2 different boards and they both behaved the same way. To further confuse things, so
that MOSFET's only, you're going to get about a 0.1 volt drop across the MOSFET as well.
Okay, well, it's supposed to see a voltage here, right, which should open the gate, and I should get
right.
high
Disconnect the
impedance.
battery.
So the battery should not have any impact on what's on here.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. But I would say that I am seeing an impact. Where's my little notes here?
Is your battery testing with some voltage on it, even when you've got voltage applied to the USB 5 volts?
Is there voltage on my battery when I don't know.
Okay.
Access.
You just want to make sure that MOSFET isn't back feeding any voltage.
Okay. So without the battery, right? So the Pico, the ESP32 analog pin is a 12-bit device, so it gives you somewhere between 0 and 4095 or something. And so I was reading 3290-ish, and I had in my code 3100 as my cutoff. If it was over 3100, I said, okay, we're running on USB, and if it's under that, we must be running on battery. When I plugged in the battery, it fell from 3290 whatever to 3082, which just happened to be below the arbitrary number 3100 that I chose, right? So it's a simple fix.
How
in
many bit?
software. It says it's 12-bit. I don't know if I believe him. It's in a 12-bit number, right? So I can certainly change that number from 3100 to 3000, and it would detect that it was USB powered. If you get it too low, then when the battery is very freshly highly charged, is up at 4-point-something volts, it gets close to what I see here after the voltage drop, and so there might be a confusion there. That's not really the issue.
So you're 3100 to 4096, essentially.
Yep. And full range is supposed to be 3.3 volts. If you do the math, you have to then multiply it by 2 because of my voltage divider to get what it was seeing, or use a multimeter. So anyhow, so it was working. When I plugged the battery in, it started reporting that it was hot because it didn't think it was on USB power. That's fine. That's what it should be doing. So
Your
then
threshold at 5 volts is around 3.8 volts.
it's full scale is 3.3, not 5. So if you take 3100 divided by 4095 times 3.3, you get a number in the 2-point-something range that you then have to multiply by 2 to get the voltage it's seeing. But
Okay.
if you want to do that math while I'm talking, that's great.
4.99. Yeah, I can see the 5 volts there with that.
Okay.
That's your 3100. But your battery is going to be lower than that.
Right. Yeah, the battery is at 3.7 or something. Except when it's being charged, when it's a little bit more because of the charger circuit and whatever. So I unplugged the USB and I stuck it in the fridge. I expected, maybe I'll get one high temperature warning as things are cooling down, 1 or 2 in the first 5, 10, 15 minutes. I didn't get anything. That's not surprising. That's kind of how it works. It's supposed to be, so it wakes up once a day and it figures out what once a day means by when it sends out the daily message, it sees what time it is, and then it makes some calculations for how many times it should sleep for 5 minutes and end up at 8 o'clock the next night. And so it does a relatively good job of reporting around 8 o'clock every night, except for the first time or two that it gets turned on. So I waited till 8 o'clock the next night, and I didn't get any message. And I hadn't been hearing any beeping, but it's inside the refrigerator. I'm not surprised I didn't hear. So anyhow, I brought it out, set it on the table, and listened for 5 minutes, and I didn't hear anything. I have a switch that goes to a GPIO pin. The ESP32s you can wake up by manipulating GPIO pins. And so when I go to sleep, I can show you the code if you want. It says, all right, look for sleep. Does everybody see this? So this is my go to sleep routine. I turn off things that might suck power. I have a variable which contains how long we want to sleep in seconds. So this is typically set to 300. The argument to this guy is in microseconds. So I have to multiply it by 1e6. And then I also take my switch and say enable waking up by GPIO manipulation of any of the bits in this mask, looking for something to go low. And then I go to sleep. Like the ESP8266, when you come out of deep sleep, you don't start over at the next state, the next PC, because all kinds of things have been lost. And so it just does a reboot, and there's a little status bit that can tell you whether you rebooted because of deep sleep wake up and whether it was a GPIO wake up and stuff like that. And so it never beeped, right? So it was not waking up in 5 minutes, every 5 minutes. The whole time it was in the, and when I press the switch, it doesn't wake up.
So your problem's nothing to do with the sensors per se.
That's right.
It has to do with the fact that it's not sensing the wake-up signal, the wake-up interrupt or whatever.
Yeah. But the behavior is different on battery versus on USB. I plug it back into the USB and everything works fine. I can wake it up from sleep. You know, it wakes up every 5 minutes. I can press the switch and it wakes up. And I unplug it back to battery and nothing. And so I tried different batteries.
Got a question for you. On that schematic, there's the 3-3 out from the regulator or buck boost or whatever that guy is.
Yes, over here.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Have you thought about driving your wake up from that rather than going from between battery and USB?
My wake up.
Well, you're sensing that V in point you said.
In
other words, you put that through a voltage divider and checked it and all that.
Right, but that's only valid when it's up and running, right? That goes to a GPIO pin, and I can read the analog value on that pin. I can read the analog on the battery. I have a switch to ground, which does the wake up, right? When I pull that switch to ground, it goes low, and that's supposed to be enough to the real-time processor in the ESP is supposed to be monitoring its GPIO pins masked to the mask that I gave it when I went to sleep. So it's looking at one GPIO pin, and when it sees a falling edge on that, it's supposed to wake up. Or when the 5-minute timer expires, it's supposed to wake up. And it's doing neither of those. When the voltage is coming in on the battery and there's no voltage on VBus.
I'm just wondering what.
When it's on battery, I've measured this pin and it's, this regulator is working. This is 3.3 volts. This is, 3.7 volts or something.
Mhm. I would expect that Motorola chip would have a buck boost, so that it would, even if the battery fell below 3.3, you should get 3.3 for a little bit.
Okay.
So that's the reason why I was thinking, if your whole wake up, both circuit and logic is dependent on voltage level, you'd want to read from the right side of the schematic here rather than the left. But if the voltage coming in has nothing to do with the logic that you have for wake up, then there's something else going on. It's maybe the wake up circuit has a minimum voltage that it needs to actuate.
Yep. And the details of that are deeply embedded in Espressive's processor, right? So I did figure out what the issue is today. Let me try. Try one thing.
There's a whole article on says confusion between wake up and startup voltages.
For Espressive devices?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That was interesting.
You should be going to sleep. Why aren't you going to sleep? Well, if you look through it and see anything, let me know. Why is it blinking? So I tried to isolate a relatively small test case here.
After you wake up once, do you need to reset the interrupts or anything like that?
No, it looks like a full reboot, so everything. Now, there is a small amount of memory, RAM, that survives deep sleep. And so I put in about 20 bytes of data that I want to survive across sleeps. Oh, so I have this set for sleeping for 1 minute. It's on USB and it's working. When it wakes up, it reads the voltage on the battery and it reads the USB voltage off the divider. Okay. This cause tells you, and reset reason tell you why it woke up. And so this is doing what it's supposed to be doing here. If I press the reset, so this is a different cause. It's cause number 7 instead of cause 4, and that's because I woke it up by the GPIO. So all this is doing exactly what I want it to do. If I unplug the USB, we're no longer going to be able to see the text that's coming out the USB port.
Oh, of course. You don't have a separate UART set
Right,
up.
right. But let me try making one change in the code.
That's why for my system, even here at work, I have a special USB cable that disconnects the power so that you're only dealing with the UART itself. That allows me to do because I'm doing PMIC programming right now.
Yeah, I've thought of having that would be useful. There is also another UART and 2 pins on the shield or on the IO headers that is available as serial port 1.
Can you set that up as your debug console, your default console?
No, because I'd have to hook a wire and I'd have to USB decode it somehow, and I can log it with my little open logger to a file, so I could. But the
it's
result,
not like it's convenient to see
right?
that kind of thing.
The result is going to be an empty file because it's not booting. It's not doing anything. The first thing I do in my setup routine is turn on the LED. Okay, and the LED is and beep the beeper, and so it's not getting this far in the code, so it's not even starting the setup.
I swear there's something you got to reset in order to. After you wake up from sleep, you've got to reset something so that it enables it correctly the next time.
I have to re-enable the wake up when it.
That's what I mean.
When it reboots, it loses track of all those things. So I have to reset it up before I go to sleep again.
Sleep enable external wake up IO. That's the function call I'm seeing.
So I'm going to reload this program, and I'm going to comment out the wake up on GPIO. So I want to see what I expect to happen is that it will now wake up every 30 seconds and beep and turn the light on. So I'm going to try.
I was just looking at this code. I knew I ran into this before. Waking up on a UART command, waking up on a Bluetooth command.
That would be light sleep, I think.
Yep, that's exactly what that is.
In order for those to be still running.
Yep. And unfortunately, Bluetooth is a transmitter, which is going to suck up battery when you're just sitting there idle.
Yeah. Yeah, so you don't want to use light sleep. So here it is. I'm expecting in a small number of seconds that the light will come on. And you may or may not be able to hear the beep. I could be wrong. Oh, so this is still on USB power. This should work just fine. Yeah. Okay, so there's the light coming on. Now I'm going to unplug USB power. And we'll wait another 30 seconds. My voltage clip came off, so I don't know what the voltage is. So there's the, I don't know if you saw it before I, so now it's working on battery. So Without the wake on GPIO, it works. With the wake on GPIO, it hangs. It doesn't work. Is that giving anyone any thoughts?
Oh, there's a difference between sleep and deep sleep in terms of calls there. So you're running the deep sleep enabled GPIO wake up. And then I was just reading the function, just sleep enabled external one wake up IO.
Yep, that's slightly different. But
Yep.
I'm doing deep sleep. I have it working now as written using the deep sleep GPIO enable with the mask. But there's something yet to be discovered. Nick and Dan, Pete is alive.
Here's an interesting note. If P.M. power down peripheral and light sleep flag is enabled, the API is unavailable since the GPIO module is powered down during sleep.
Yep, I'm not using Wi-Fi. I'm not using Bluetooth. I'm not using all kinds of stuff. Back to dial. So what has to happen to that GPIO pin for it to wake up?
You're pulling it down. Did you ever pull it back up?
Nope.
Did you got to reset that too?
Okay. So in the code, where's my code? So you're thinking that if I put a pull up here, that will fix it?
That's my thought.
Okay. Glitch on your power line. A glitch on my power line. Before you guys arrived, we talked about power. So it works fine when I'm plugged into USB power, and it fails when I'm running on battery only. We looked at the schematic of the board I'm using. So USB power comes in here, battery comes in here. I have a analog pin that's looking at this value. We saw that when we plug the battery in, this MOSFET is supposed to be isolating the battery, but the value, the reading off of the USB value changes when you plug in the battery. We don't know why yet. I don't know why yet either.
Leak on the MOSFET, maybe?
It could be some leakage through the MOSFET.
Yeah, I was just thinking that myself. Have you looked up the specs on that MOSFET?
No. It's a board. It's intended to do this exact function. It's, I'm sure, the cheapest thing they could find that would.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It
But
would come close to doing what it's supposed to,
but it
but it
may
doesn't
not
really
be.
matter.
And that's
Yeah.
why I'm thinking and look at the specs, see what
Yeah.
it's actually supposed to do.
Yeah. But that's kind of unrelated to the issue, right? So I have a GPIO pin that when the real-time processor, the low voltage real-time processor, sees a falling edge on it, it's supposed to wake up. Or when the timer expires, it's supposed to wake up. When I commented out the GPIO pin, it worked just fine watching the timer timeout, and it woke up.
Hey,
But when,
I just noticed something.
okay,
The diode in that MOSFET is
yeah,
going to allow battery voltage to go to V in whether or not that MOSFET is on or off.
okay. So that's is it? Do you think it's drawn wrong? So this is a P MOSFET, right? It's high side. It's certainly conceivable that they used the wrong symbol. I'm not the expert here, but I see what you're saying. That seems counterintuitive. Um,
In other words,
I mean, normally that
no, it
diode
should be fine.
runs in the opposite direction of the current, right?
It should be in the
The,
opposite
the
direction,
main
right?
current. Yeah.
Because the way it is, that MOSFET does diddly.
Yep. So my guess is that that's an error in the schematic.
Could be, or an error in the symbol.
Yeah. They chose the wrong symbol for their.
It's a P channel MOSFET.
That's what it should be, a P channel. Yeah. Or maybe I just don't understand.
I've tried to download the datasheet 3 times now, and it keeps sending me to Avnet's website, not the datasheet.
Okay. But let's get back to Carl said something about resetting the GPIO from low to high. So I can do that in software fairly easily. While the processor is in deep sleep, it turns off a bunch of stuff. It looks at the wake-up conditions, and based on that, it decides whether or not certain features can be powered off or not. An internal pull-up on that pin is probably disabled during deep sleep unless you do the right magic incantations, which I haven't done. And so I started thinking that maybe that GPIO pin is floating while it's asleep. And it's not seeing when I ground it. So I hooked up my voltmeter to that pin, and when I ground it, it goes pretty much to 0. When it was floating, it was 33 millivolts or something. It was pretty low.
Could you put that schematic back up for a sec?
Absolutely.
Okay, so from the looks of this, 3 is the drain and 2 is the source. If you look at the data sheet,
Okay.
should be reversed on that in this schematic. You
Yeah.
should be putting V battery into 2 and taking it out of, or the drain, taking it out of the drain, right?
Yep.
Into V1. So this is showing it backwards. You may want to actually check the way it's built,
Yeah. Okay.
because that could be your issue right there.
That could be an issue. It's not the issue with my waking up from sleep, but it could be another issue. So I've used this C3 Pico in several devices, and I notice the battery dying even when it never turns on. You know, I have a GPIO wake up and I don't have a sleep wake up at all. In a couple of weeks, the battery will be dead. So if as you say, they wired it up backwards,
Yeah, they're
it's
pulling out of the battery all the time.
yeah. So I will definitely investigate that further.
It's an SOT23, and I've got a quick pick from the data sheet. If somehow I could post it to the chat here.
Also.
Yeah, I need to know which. Well, no, I don't. At some point, I'll need to know.
3 is the drain.
I'll need to know which is pin 1 on a.
Yeah, and it should be the other way around.
Device.
3 is the drain and 2 is the source.
Yeah, and 1 is the gate.
Right.
Well, they got the gate right.
Well, that's at least on the schematic. We don't know how it's populated on the board, right?
That's why I was going to show you the image of the chip itself, because if you look at it where pin 3 is above you, it's a center pin, and you got 2 pins coming down at you. The pin on the left is pin 1. The pin on the right is pin 2. Pin 3 is the tab up above.
I'll have to look that up, or you'll have to show me the picture.
Can I share real quick?
Sure.
Okay, what do I click on to do that?
There's an icon down at the bottom, 1, 2, 3 from the left. It's a screen with an arrow on it.
Start screen sharing.
Then you have to click window or entire screen or whatever you want to share, and then click share.
So can you guys see that?
Yes, we can. Yeah, that's the same schematic.
Yeah, so I was looking at the this here where the drain is the center tab, and then you've got the gate and the source over here.
3 is the drain. 1 is the gate. Which one is 1? Move your mouse over 1. The pin. Okay, 1.
I'm sorry. 1 is the gate.
Yes.
2 is the source. 3 is the drain.
Okay.
And if you look at this for a P channel, basically the big diode is supposed to be passing the main current, and the little diode is representing the gate voltage, turning it on.
Okay. So I will find that on one of these little boards and see if I can probe around a little and see if it's hooked up right.
Do you need the link for that?
Sure, put it in the chat. And I should expect to have to download it 3 or 4 times.
Exactly.
I got a first shot.
All right, so where are we? So I added an external pull-up resistor on my switch GPIO pin. And
That would make sense from your statement that you said that the pull-ups and pull-downs are turned off when it's in sleep mode.
but it works when it's USB powered. Everything was working great on USB power. And so evidently the processor, it's stuck waiting for the pin to go up or something. Is it's supposed to be looking for a falling edge on that GPIO pin. That GPIO pin is floating just a little bit above zero, at least when there's battery powered. And the fact that it's floating low or held low keeps the processor from booting or keeps the real-time processor from seeing the timeout and causing a reboot. Now there are strapping pins that if you hold low, like pin 2, it'll go into JTAG mode and wait for the JTAG debugger to hook up or something, and that'll prevent it from booting. But the pin I'm using is not a strapping pin, or at least it's not documented as a strapping pin. But adding the pull-up resistor fixed the issue that I was having of it not waking up on battery.
Well, I know that the electronics guys here prefer external resistors as opposed to trying to deal with internal resistors.
My only issue with the external pull-ups is that when you're in deep sleep, they're sucking a little bit of power.
I would have to look up the specs a little more, but I would venture to suspect that you could get away with a 50K.
Okay.
That should give you at least 5 times less drainage or less loss.
Yep. When I solder up my shield, my choices are for my surface mounts are 10K, 20K, or 100K. So I'll probably use a 20K.
Try 100K. If 100K works,
Yep.
That'll be a lot less battery drain.
Yep. I suspect if this MOSFET is put in backwards, that's gonna make a huge difference.
Well, you were saying the voltage went wacko when you plugged in USB and battery at the same time.
There was definitely a change.
So that MOSFET, if it's backwards, would definitely do that.
Yep.
It'd almost be wanting to feed some of the voltage back into the battery.
Yep. It would start charging the battery, whether it needed it or not. Luckily,
let's catch a LiPo on fire.
It'll be interesting if I try to contact Wemos or Lowlin in China who make this, and if there's any chance that I'll be able to talk to somebody.
And they need to speak English too, right?
Yeah.
Unless you know Mandarin.
That's my preferred language. I know nothing in
Mandarin.
Not to mention you're gonna have to call around midnight.
Yeah, if they were in Hong Kong, they're probably speaking Cantonese. So, or
most Hong Kong folks can speak English, or enough English.
Well, I've been there, and most don't speak English. There are many that do, but not most of them.
In the tech field?
Oh, in the tech field, probably do. Yeah, probably true.
I know somebody who knows somebody who speaks Mandarin.
Well, my wife learned a little bit for her job,
Yeah.
so
Well,
she hasn't used it now for 5 years, but
yeah,
she did learn it.
Yidi and Zhongguaqua. I speak a little Mandarin.
Yeah, I speak none. All right, so that's my story. there is about I don't know what they use the internal temperature sensor for in the ESP32. There is about a 12 degree C difference between what the internal sensor reads and what my external sensor reads.
That would make sense.
It would.
Mm-hmm.
Why? 18-degree Fahrenheit difference?
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
Even
Which-
in deep sleep, you're going to have a little bit of heat on the inside of the chip. But ambient, you've got airflow, and that'll tend to reduce temperature a bit. 18 degrees, not necessarily, but
yeah.
I'm just mentioning there's a few comments in the chat as well.
Yep. Pete's out of surgery. Yay. I saw that. Check see if the voltage on the GPIO pin is changing. Voltage on the GPIO pin. Before the pull-up, it was changing from 33 millivolts down to 0 millivolts or microvolts or something, essentially 0. Diode backwards. So the schematic that we've been showing is the schematic for the processor board for which they have manufactured and sold a large number. It's certainly possible that it was populated wrong. We think that the MOSFET is, we know that it is put in backwards on the schematic. There's every reason to believe that it's put in backwards on the board as well. And I will address that in the coming days to see if I can figure that out. That's not the issue with why it wouldn't wake up when it was on battery. With the USB unplugged, it doesn't really matter what that MOSFET does, I guess. It's the battery's running through that reverse diode, probably not as good a conductor as the forward. So there's probably more voltage drop, but anyhow, so so it seems to be working with the pull-up resistor. I'll have to do a respin of my little shield.
No.
Do some bodge wires or something on the ones that come to add the pull-up. All right, so that is a problem of the month and some show and tell. I haven't done anything on the Power Wheels vehicle because
did you see my email on that? There was another one that came up on Nextdoor.
I did. I responded to her and said, shoot me a text if it's still available, and I never heard anything. I would have taken it.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so I'm teaching a course at Durham Tech, and it's a course I haven't done before, and so I'm having to do lesson plans and things, and that's taking up my free time that isn't occupied with pickleball. Does anyone else have something they want to show and tell?
I have a question.
Okay.
So when you were in the part where you were showing the Arduino IDE, and then when you pass a certain point, your Arduino is no longer connected to the serial monitor, so you can't read the output. I think that's what the situation was that you were describing.
Yes.
But So, do you have suggestions? I'm trying to debug something that I am trying to take away from the laptop and just have running on its own.
Yep.
And I had heard that if I could use PuTTY like
Mhm.
ESP can send things to any serial
Yep.
program, whatever that you wanted to. Um, are there suggestions for how to do this? Something that you usually do?
So I'll tell you what I do. One is I blink the LED. Okay. Instead of printing
Okay.
something out, I blink the LED. If you have a multicolor LED, like some of these new boards do, you can use different colors to indicate different things.
Oh, okay.
If you don't, you can blink out a number code, three blinks, a pause, two blinks. That's a code 32 or something. I also will, if I have unused GPIOs, I can hook it up to a logic analyzer, and I can capture a logic analyzer trace that will show me temporally what signals are doing what, including important ones, plus unused ones that I can blink at will. So I can, have a signal that goes high when I enter a subroutine and goes low when I exit the subroutine. And from that, I can see how much time was spent in that subroutine, and I can count how many times that subroutine is called, from a different subroutine. And um, if you want to do serial, um, the ESP32s, most of them have multiple UARTs. And so the serial object is hooked up to the USB data plus and minus pins. Those will toggle even if you don't have your USB cable plugged in, but you can't. So you could rig up a USB cable that didn't have the plus 5 volts, right? Just had the signals and ground. I don't think you can just put those into a serial port if you even have a computer that has a serial port on it anymore. So you'd need a USB to serial chip of some sort.
You might use that, or in the case of what I got going here, I just used a TTL to serial because the actual port itself was just TTL data, and then the USB chip was actually converting that into USB
in the
signal.
chip. So you had a
So there was a separate
TTL
USB driving chip.
TTL to USB serial cable is what you
Yeah.
had, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Just a standard prolific.
Yep.
And we had cut the power
Right.
so that there was just the three
the power
pins, data in, data out, and ground.
Yep. You can, on the Pico, there is a TX and an RX pin. They're like GPIO 20 and 21 or something. You can use them as GPIO pins if you want. You can also use serial 1 dot print, and the data will go through a second UART and out those pins. And then I've been hooking up a little data logger chip that takes serial in and dumps whatever it sees to a file. So I do my debug prints to that port, to that serial 1 object, and then I can log that into a file, or I could hook up my logic analyzer and put in a interpreter that would do serial ASCII conversions, or you could hook that up to the cable that Scott was talking about and run PuTTY on it.
One of the things that we were doing here on it was an M7, so it's a little bit more advanced, but essentially instead of the default debug serial pins, we actually were able to route according to the board bring up and the device tree. Well, device trees for Linux, but the where you assign the pin to what, the pinmux file, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Such that the debug console, quote unquote, can go out one of the other UART ports, not necessarily what would be connected with the USB. And so that gave us a chance to log stuff out that wasn't on the USB port itself. It looks like to your code, your standard printf statements, but the pins themselves were reassigned.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So Nick just said that Pete's in recovery. He had his pacemaker replaced today. Ahead of plan. Okay. Good. Yeah. So does that answer your question, Dawn? Do you need other?
Yes, many things to try.
Yep.
In fact, I think I'll start with the LEDs. I didn't even think of that, but that could give me enough information right there.
Right.
That's your standard diagnostic tool, flashing LEDs back and forth.
You can also hook up GPIO pins from one processor to another processor and use software serial to communicate across them. And then you can have that one plugged into the normal USB with the serial monitor and the IDE, a separate IDE instance running. And you can just echo what you see.
You can get real cute with that, because if one side is a Linux processor and the other side's a lower level processor, when you do that, you can use something called RP message, or remote processor messaging. And you can actually send commands back and forth that you can interpret and create on the lower level processor that goes in and out those GPIO pins as a UART pin.
All right, I'll save that for plan B.
Believe me, it takes a little while. We had a team of 5, and it took us 3 weeks to try to get it to work right.
Okay, well, thanks. Thanks for all the suggestions.
Yeah. All right. I think that's most everything I've been working on. The next thing I'm going to do on the power wheels is cut a hole in the seat and shine my essentially my optical mouse camera thing down through the hole.
Is this a kid present sensor?
No, it's a velocity. And
so you're going to shine down, not up.
Yep, shine down. And it takes 15 by 15 pixel images 100 times a second or something, and does motion vector analysis to try to figure out which way what it's looking at is moving relative to it, and then it gives you deltas in X and Y.
I was just thinking of those old sun mouse pads, the optical pads. And so basically you're reading the grass blades as an optical pad.
It's the grit on the concrete, and the leaves and the stains and the cracks between the joints and things like that. All right. Anybody else?
At 15 by 15 pixels, you're not going to get very good resolution, but you'll get an indication of movement.
Yep.
And you'll get a directional movement. It should be enough to.
Yeah. And I want to be able to look at some of those images and see if I can see the cracks. It's a relatively narrow field of view, I think 40 degrees. You're able to upload images at 15 frames a second or something. So it'll be fun to grab a few of them and see what they look like. I have no idea. I would guess they're monochromatic in the infrared, but I don't know that.
You know, you can do a quick experiment. Just take your hand and slide it over some concrete or bricks or something and see what you got.
That would require powering up the sensor, right? And writing code to capture the frames and
I was thinking of breadboarding it and checking it out.
I'm gonna
Unit testing it.
I'm gonna do a little 3D printer thing that fits in the hole I drill so that I can pop it in and out, and I'll just push it along the living room hardwood floor to see what it sees.
You have this little cart in the house?
I do. You see it?
I was going to say, I was wondering what your wife thinks about all of this stuff.
Well, this is my room.
Oh.
We've got grandkids coming in 2 weeks, so I've got to do a little bit of straightening up. Or they'll be poking into all kinds of things they shouldn't be. The last time Quinn was here, I had my SumoBot robot, and so she was standing over near where the Jeep is, and I was sitting over here, and I was driving the robot, and she got a little bit apprehensive of it driving towards her, and so that fact kept her out of this half of the room, and so she didn't go poking around.
Yeah, that apprehension's gonna fade.
That's
though.
gone.
Yeah.
That's long gone. Now she'll be chasing after it.
You could put a clown's head on a RC vehicle and have it wave a hand at her or something.
Yep.
Clowns scare kids anyway.
So they say.
Never worked on me, because in Chicago they had Bozo the Clown. And between him and Ronald McDonald, I was never afraid of clowns.
Yep. All right. Anything else? Next month is July.
Oh, yeah.
Carl's going to be in Italy.
Yeah, I'll be gone.
Have fun. I guess you can stop the recording if you'd like before everybody leaves. Bye, Nick. Bye, Dan. Good to see you, Dan.